And we're rolling. This is our next sketch and kvetch session. This time I set up some more rigid rules. I have some nice piece of paper and I created a boundary for it. I thought it would be easier to know the exact target of the size of my drawing, and I set up my ISO microphone light, and I will try not to move this because it's set up exactly centered. So here we go. So today I thought I will work within certain initiated steps, so to have some sort of skeleton or guidelines to start with. So for example, I'm just going to do a few random weird squiggles, not too much, just kind of enough to start with something, and then I'm just going to kind of fill in and connect and create illusions of depth and light and see where it takes us. Alright, so the last video I uploaded had one view, which was my own view. And it was ironic because it's the one where I was toying with a more clickbaity title. So I was talking about how the algorithm rewards manipulative behavior as opposed to rewarding the decent behavior where you actually are putting yourself out there and you get following people who are like-minded, or you find your niche and people follow you for who you are, and then it gets all ruined by your channel becoming more popular, your viewers being more, I wouldn't say diverse, but more, I would say, focused on what they want from you, and then in some way it just sort of takes away from your original intentions. And then the monetization aspect comes in, and you cannot say no because it's everything in this life is about survival. We're basically paying rent for surviving, for living, for being alive. We have to compromise. If you know, heated underwear company contacted me about presenting their product on this video and offering me a chunky amount of money. Am I too good to say no to that? I guess we might find out. Well, not as long as I have just maximal amount of view ranging in 1 digit, but for now I feel like it's the aspect of capitalism sort of encroaching on every aspect of our content isn't doing it any service. It's just sort of sad to see wherever you turn, everybody is trying to sell something, and everything does get corrupted, and it does take a lot of energy, a lot of courage to stay on course, and also it does take some map, like a mental map, navigational map, maybe your values that you listed somewhere and you keep it under your bed or framed over your bed, just so you know what course you wanted to take originally. But then, you know, it's okay to change your mind too, and also it's okay if you have certain circumstances that make you unable to afford having a little thing called integrity. I mean, I'm sarcastic here, but you know, not everybody, not all artists can afford to be purist and to, you know, to say no to advertisers and even to audience members, their own audience that demands a certain kind of content. They don't have the luxury to say no. And it's a rare thing. It's a rare kind of luck where you can actually be your own boss and you can navigate through life marching to the drum of your own beat. Sorry, marching to the beat of your own drum. That's the saying. And most of the time, that aspect of everything being about survival and making money turns everything into a big marketplace. Wherever you turn, someone is selling something, and the least likely things are being sold. Even anti-consumerism itself became a thing that can be packaged in a neat little image, little package, and sold. You can have, like, you know, it takes the next level of salesmanship to be able to sell minimalism, for example, which has been a trend for quite a while on social media. In general, it's very noble trend, I would say. If it's a trend, it's a very noble premise, because it's about finding what really matters and turning away from just consumption and wanting things, and the belief that if you get that one certain thing, you're going to be happy finally. And then you get that thing that's shiny and enticing, and then you have it for one day and it just becomes one of the objects. And so that's a great premise, but what happened with minimalism itself, it just sort of turned into a big sales pitch. You know, the people who are minimalist influencers are really creating this very impressive image of their work, of themselves, and it's almost as if they were selling it. And they write books, make movies, they even sell products. Like, let's say if I was that type of capitalist minimalist, ironically, I could develop a line of very costly pencils, and my sales pitch would be, buy my $400 pencil, because it has value, because it's a good quality pencil, and it's the one pencil that you will use, and because of that, it's a special pencil, and you should pay $400 for it, because you have to put a lot of value. You have to put a lot of faith in how your object that you own adds value to your life. So you put a lot of stock in it, and then you end up with with products that people who promote minimalist sold you online, and it's just so sardonically twisted that it just kind of makes me think about all the other paradoxes that I've been trying to crack while drawing these abstract images. like even anti-consumerism couldn't help being swallowed by this giant Jabba the Hutt monster of capitalism and entrepreneurship. Smash that like button and subscribe. And it's going to be only a matter of time before I start saying this formula, which is kind of became almost a joke. Smash that like button and subscribe. So yeah, I'm aware that I'm talking to myself and basically throwing this content into the void, which in some way is very liberating. I feel free to do this, to talk about stuff in a way I like, or not talk, or to direct my line in any direction I want, make my own decisions. So yeah, I kind of veered off the topic, but oh yeah, freedom of being underexposed. there's a trade-off. It's almost as if I worried what would happen if I got recognition as an artist. Like, I almost don't want it because it would be a lot of drag, a lot of work, publicity. You have to travel to get, I don't know, to give interviews, and then you would slowly start losing your privacy because people would recognize you if you're that kind of artist. Like, for example, if you're an actor or a musician, popular musician, then your life changes totally. You cannot even have friends that you used to like anymore, or even if you try, they will see you differently. So fame kind of really ruins the realness of you as a person, and then you become agoraphobic person that has to give up a lot for that one thing that everybody craves so much. So yeah, I'm not in a rush to partake in this kind of fame. Influencers that make it for 15 minutes and then crash and burn and get exposed as frauds, even though frauds, they were just influencers, they were just doing some silly thing, and nobody, like, they didn't make any promises. People created them, viewers and the audience. So like, what do you want now? You started it. I like the kind of anonymity and also the freedom of doing whatever the hell I want, because there are no consequences. Nobody will tell me, oh, you shouldn't start painting donkeys because your audience loves horses, and even though you really love painting donkeys and maybe unicorns, the horse audience will be very disappointed, and that's what sells. And we have contract, especially like the artists that have contracts with their galleries, they have to deliver. The galleries don't joke, they need to pay rent. So everything is revolving again. It's almost like this giant black hole with very strong gravitational pull, which is money. Everything comes down to who needs money, who has money, who pays rent, and then that shapes art based on what's the most likely thing that the audiences will pay for or even be interested in. So in order to generate a lot of traffic on social media, you have to provide a certain type of thing that will take off. You can't just do blobs. Like if this drawing had a thumbnail of like, I'm going to draw Vecna from Stranger Things because that's the most trendy franchise, even though it kind of, there's a lot of backlash for how the writers just winged it the last season. So yeah, if I did something more specific, like something that resembles a known icon in popular culture. I mentioned before the portrait of Michael Jackson painted with ketchup, or a, I don't know, some kind of cityscape drawn very fast with my eyes closed. Although that one is very easily to cheat. And then of course there's also a lot of AI popping up here and there, and that people just kind of jump into this abyss obliviously, and they don't want more. They just they eat it up because it's cool. AI art is cool, of course. It's flawlessly weird, and also it's realistic. Even if it's a weird art, it's executed very well because AI is using all the combined skill and knowledge of all the artists that have ever put anything online. So AI has a lot of materials to work with, but it's all recycled. So eventually it will eat itself, if provided people will continue to take inspiration from AI, or neglecting the human artists. Eventually the well will dry out, and the artist will be needed again to generate original content again, because the robot is just going to choke on its own nuts and bolts, so to speak. And yeah, regurgitating the same already created content. Remixing is fun, but the digital brain doesn't have human experiences, it just imitates them. So like, what's the point of consuming artificially created art when you don't share that experience with the robot? You share experience with a human. So yeah, it's still kind of cool to use it as a tool for sparking ideas, for getting inspiration, just the same way you look at a rainbow or a sunset or something, like a dent in the wall or a stain on the glass, or in a faces in a burnt toast. It just inspires us. The same way AI can kind of spark that little inspiration, or help with process of trying to figure out certain processes, creative processes. Yeah, but just downright using AI to do our homework won't be sustainable for a longer time. it will burn out. And then, what's the point of consuming AI when it's the experience of the human artist, their brain, their life, that makes art, and also that kind of is like a dialogue with your own viewpoint, your own experiences. There's no such dialogue with a robot. It just, oh, pretty picture, look at that, oh, that's cool. So what? Well, that's the way we view art, and that's kind of worrisome when we see what kinds of artistic creative activity is most appreciated by audiences on the internet. The stuff that cannot be distinguished from AI anymore, even if it's created by human, it's still just pure skill, which is impressive but empty. Oh, I have my microphone is slightly above me, which means that you might not get that nice sound of pencil rubbing against the paper. Maybe I will switch it. Maybe there's still time. There'll be a little noise. Constant improvement. How many likes will that get me? Maybe I'll get more views if I correct my microphone. And we strive to do better, of course, but what's our motivation? For me, it's sort of like I'm compulsive, and if something doesn't work, it just almost like a pebble in my shoe. I just have to fix it. I can't just let it go. And it's not really, I wouldn't call it perfectionism. It's more like a compulsion. It has to work. It's almost like fun. It's almost like a game, like a puzzle. It just, everything has to match, everything has to work. If something is off, then it just gives me a hard time, and I can't let it go. Like, every video I upload, I have a listen, I have a look, and there's always something off. Like, it's just improvement for the improvement's sake. I don't think I have any other motivation for improvement. Just like in sports, you just kind of improve because you have fun with movements. I mean, I think there's a big Grand Canyon-sized gap between the joy of sports and the gruesome reality of professional sports, of being a young athlete pushed. That's another example of how the compromise works when the money is involved. If you are above average, you get more interest from promoters and coaches, organizations that run the clubs, and then press, and then they expect more from you, and then you have to perform more and more, and it becomes your life. There's no escape, and you enjoy it as long as you can, but eventually it catches up with you that you are basically, I don't know, you just kind of serving them. And there's a lot of people relying on you. You make them, you make your own money, of course, but you also, a lot of people depend on you to make their money, because they're attached themselves to your success. That's the problem. Like any sort of, almost every successful person has to grapple with a whole group of people that gravitate towards them, that attach themselves to their success. They help out, of course, because they're kind of like that, the school of fish that hang out near the shark to kind of pick the parasites of the shark's skin and help out, but then they do let you know eventually that you are tied to them and they depend on you. And then if you're an artist or an athlete, a lot of expectations are involved in everything you do. Then eventually you burn out. You have enough. And then you get some kind of anxiety, the bouts of anxiety that make you perform worse. There was this athlete, who was that? I forgot her name, who was under a lot of pressure and under fire for just flopping. She was a gymnast, she couldn't do the flips and she couldn't do even basic moves because she was so anxious. And she had to say, I'm done, that's it, I need to take a break. And everybody just flipped out, and there was a lot of hate. Like, people were, if I got paid that much, I would do triple flip. But people are always wise from the comfort of their chairs. And the thing that gets me is always like seeing these like schlubby men sitting on the comfy chairs with chips and beers and donuts and screaming at the players. And they move like you swim in the molasses. And if I was paid that much, I would run much faster. No, you wouldn't. You would get a heart attack. You would die on the spot. It's not as easy as you think. I've never had I always said that the part of the brain responsible for enjoying sports in my head is missing. I do suffer for it at times, because talking about sports is quite a bridge between strangers, especially among men. You go to a barber shop, you can't avoid a question like, how about those, Red Sox last night? Or do you think Patriots will win next season? I don't know, because who's Patriots? Patriots and hockey too. My family, my dad and my brother are really into hockey, and they follow Boston Bruins team. And they sometimes ask me how they're doing, and I'm like, just look it up, because I have no idea. They're doing their thing, I'm doing my thing, and I do like activity, but looking at others, observing others engaging in activity is just, it doesn't work for me, because I feel restless and I want to do that thing. I want to grab that hockey stick and do it myself. And I always feel like when I'm trying to enjoy sports, like, why do they get to do this and I just sit here like a dope? So like, it's always been a problem for me. And yeah, I do like activity in a general sense, and the most general sort of discipline for activity as a whole is either gymnastics, but gymnastics are quite rigorous, and parkour. Recently, parkour has been very popular as a sport because it has a very universal general physical preparation to offer. So people who practice all these parkour movements become better athletes at other sports that are more specific, because all the components that are involved in other disciplines are there. So jumping, you get better at, distance jumping, whatever else is involved with jumping. Turning swiftly helps you with basketball and soccer, and then there was this kind of an experimental class that one of the schools tried out, where they hired a parkour instructor in a school as a gym teacher, and they didn't have any other sports activities in the school, just parkour. But then they would form these teams, recruiting these students that practiced parkour for a few semesters, and they would put them together as a soccer team or tennis team, whatever other sport, even baseball. And then it turned out that the students that practiced parkour did way better having their general fitness preparation than the students that just focused on that particular discipline, because it was sort of one directional. When you practice tennis, you practice certain things, moves that help you with tennis, but when you don't practice other aspects of the movement, you miss out. The general fitness physical preparation is giving you the whole vocabulary of how your body can move, and that way you don't even need a specific preparation for other sports. And then I find it fascinating, it's sort of, I think parkour kind of took off around the time when the action movies became a little bit more awesome. The scenes of chasing and like Matrix. I think that's the one reason that a lot of people that are nerdy, to some extent I'm a nerd too, are really attracted to parkour as a discipline, because it just sort of makes you feel like you are in the Matrix and you're doing these cool moves and flips, and it's very empowering. And for me, because I'm so compulsive, it also gives me this outlet for my compulsion to problem solve. When I see an object, if I see a strange object in a park, I immediately start to try to figure out how to tackle that object, how to turn it into an obstacle, what kind of cool moves I can do on this thing. And yeah, it's cool. It's very, can be dangerous if you're not careful, but the key is to expose yourself to it very gradually and always work within your comfort zone. And then eventually, when you feel very comfortable with certain move, then you can start inching away just a little bit, just a toe outside of that comfort zone, so that eventually the movements that others see as impossible become second nature to you. And also scary movements at height become very comfortable for you, and you have a lot of ways to bail if something goes wrong. So it's in some way it's an exposure therapy. And the funny story behind this whole parkour thing is that it actually did start for me as a part of a anxiety therapy, because I've been suffering from anxiety disorder roughly since 2012. That's kind of spiked. That's when I realized that anxiety can feel like illness, because of course I was anxious before. I had, stage frights. I have, being nervous before an exam. That's the normal anxiety that everybody feels. But the kind of anxiety I'm talking about is the kind that makes you feel incapacitated and ill. It's basically, it just feels like you're sick and you don't know what's wrong with you. And it just sometimes feels like some kind of doom will descend upon you pretty quickly. And then it feels like you can't breathe, there's chest tightness, sometimes it imitates heart attack. So yeah, I do not recommend generalized anxiety disorder. But if you do get it, I recommend you do find a therapist that specializes in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a practice involving series of exercises that seem almost very technical, like almost feels like homework, like almost activities that are supposed to help you to get familiar with your anxiety, to tame it, to even befriend it in some way. So you're not stranger to it. You know what it is, and then you know how to sort of give in to it in order for it to loosen its grip on you. So it's sort of counterintuitive premise where in order to, I compare it to swimming. In order to not drown, the best thing to do is to just calm down, lie down belly up on the surface and take a deep breath. That air will make you float and just relax into it. So that's sort of the main principle I always remember. It will always stay with me. The lesson I learned from that therapy is to not struggle with it. The more we run away from it, the more it tightens its grip on us. That's the nature of anxiety and many other things in life. So the very first moment I remember from learning to swim was relaxing. And so the story of anxiety and parkour. So the therapist gave me a homework to something to try after the sessions were over, something to take home with me, which was to expose myself to some mildly scary things once in a while. I mean, not like risky things and stupid things, but just slightly scary. So I went to a climbing gym because I thought I've always been slightly worried about height. I've had a little height anxiety, so I thought it would be fun to explore that with climbing, and I signed up to climbing gym, and there was this huge structure there made of steel pipes, and it was for parkour. Steel pipes and boxes and platforms, and I thought, wow, that's cool. I can actually take a parkour class in the climbing gym. I thought that could be a great way for exposing myself to fear in controlled way. So I signed up for a class, but I was worried because I was too old. I was 41, and I thought I was toying with the idea of starting the practice when I stumbled upon parkour videos. They were very grainy, first YouTube parkour videos from the Russians in the late 90s. I thought, oh, I'm probably too old because I was like 24, 23. Oh, I'm too old to do parkour. And then at 41, I took my first class and it clicked right away. I was really into it. All right, so then what happened next will amaze you. who will it? So I kept taking classes and I was getting better at it, and it really satisfied my compulsion to get better at stuff just for its own sake and solve problems. And then I also felt like I was getting stronger and more fit, and I felt better. I felt less fearful. Also, it really did help with the anxiety thing. So I kept at it and I was becoming better at it. And then I took my first coaching course because they offer level 1, level 2, and level 3 parkour coach in parkour and free running. I got to as high of a level as 2. So level 2 is not a joke. It's kind of a grueling process to pass the physical exam. But sometimes when I took it, it wasn't as grueling as it used to be in the original years of parkour, when it was being formed, the first coaches were being trained. That was grueling. That was a really serious physical test. And then coaching test, I failed it 2 times, and then the 3rd time I passed it, because coaching is tricky. There's a lot of aspects to think about, a lot of elements that you might miss, and you have to control the situation, you have to control the entire stage. You have to predict what can go wrong, and it's not easy. There's a lot of risk involved. Your students fall and hurt themselves, then it kind of feels like it's on you. So yeah, I coached for close to maybe 8 years. Now I retired because I've got some kind of a permanent foot injury from not resting my foot enough. Because I've also been a runner, so I really enjoyed running. So when my heel hurt, I would just kind of think, my body will heal itself, and then it just led to my tendon being calcified slightly, and whenever now I start running or jumping, it starts hurting. So it kind of really started to affect my work, and I also felt like it was enough, and just I felt out of place as a coach at certain point in my life, and I decided to try my life without coaching. And it's been only a few months since November, and I feel like it was a good decision. I'm much calmer, and I didn't lose focus on getting better at the discipline. Plus I have more time to do art and silly videos when I draw and talk. Then I get to watch it. But yeah, the thing I talked about earlier had something to do with my decision too, which is the kind of paradox of having to make it. Even if you engage with something that you really enjoy, it does have to eventually turn into your livelihood, because how else would you survive? But then the risk in turning what you love into business is that you just ruin it. It's like when I kept setting up my alarm clock, radio clock, to wake me up every morning with my favorite song, and every morning would be setting up a favorite song, It would work for a while, but then after a while I started associating that song that I always enjoyed with the dread of getting up and going to school, to work. And I stopped doing that because I ruined like 10 songs that I always enjoyed. I started thinking of them as, wake up call for work. So the same goes for things I enjoy. Because turning something into a business is sort of like pushing it to the next level. You have to think about a lot more than just that thing that you enjoy. There's, with coaching, with parkour, you have to show up regardless of the weather. You have to file a injury report, incident report. You have to think about situations, kind of almost think ahead about what can go wrong, and report to your boss, and just sort of the meetings, and I just got overwhelmed. It was just, there's a lot of this sort of, I know that the morale boosting is important in corporations in general, in companies. There's a lot of this sort of like catchphrases and slogans that stopped meaning anything to me. Just, be strong to be useful was one of them, which is a very noble kind of saying, like slogan that the founders of parkour coined. But then I thinking about it, like, so what does it mean that being weak is making you useless? Was Stephen Hawking useless? And then they think that other kinds of strength. I think, to me, Stephen Hawking is probably one of the strongest humans on Earth. I don't think I would have that much strength to do what he did, despite the odds. But then it's just sort of, in context of the company, it was sort of fitness oriented. So everything had to be about being strong physically and mentally, of course, too. But the mental fitness was tightly connected to physical fitness. So like, you're doing this physically taxing activity, and you have enough mental strength to continue. So that's basically the context of it, although it could extend to other challenges in your life. And also the way I tried to justify this slogan was, it's optional to get strong, but if you are strong, you might as well become useful, which is a little bit less sounding like a, Darwinian struggle, kind of Hitler-esque premise of like only strong people can run the world, right? So, or be useful. So yeah, I kind of started questioning these slogans, the ethos. What was the other one? We start together, we finish together. Another very, very noble sentiment. And instead of like emphasizing the community dynamic, but on the other hand, it pushes you into this sort of mentality of a flock, which I always hated. I never liked the sort of, corporate retreat, matching t-shirt, kind of yelling and waving cheerfulness. Just really gave me heebie-jeebies whenever I was faced with it. Group of people doing the same thing and believing the same thing. How can it be possible? Is it a cult? Are they brainwashed? Or do they really believe what they're yelling, so like, or what's written on their t-shirts. I think George Carlin said it best, is that you will recognize them because they will be wearing hats, matching hats. And if you see people wearing matching hats, run as far as you can. He was not wrong. So George Carlin was a prophet. All right, I'm going to take a little break. I might resume the video or just split my video into parts again, which kind of worked last time. Right. Sometimes it's nice to take a break. Sometimes it's nice to even walk away if something doesn't work out. I'm not buying into the sentiment of you should never give up, never quit, never give up. Why not? What if something doesn't work objectively? What if the thing you're doing has been banging your head against the brick wall, hoping that it will punch through? If there's something that I have good evidence that can work, then of course I can work at it. But even then, like, things happen and I might fall short. It might not work out. Sometimes trying over and over stubbornly is just a recipe for even more failure. It's basically multiplying your failure. Like Charlie Brown in football, you just keep kicking it and it's getting snatched from under your feet, and you fall. And of course, you might say, I'll never give up. I will try over and over and over. But it could be ad infinitum. It might never end. So like, I think giving up is a healthy approach. Giving up easily might be what we might want to avoid. But you know, like with the coaching thing, I just walked away with a kind of a friendly parting ways with the team and with the boss, and I have a way in if I ever want to come back. So I still am not sure whether I took a break or walked away entirely, which is not something I lose sleep over. It's just sort of, you know, I'm figuring things out. And if I ever come back, maybe I'll be better and different. Maybe I'll have a healthier approach to it, because sometimes it's nice to step away and reflect on what you're doing. Like sometimes I kind of wanted to see what it's like to live a life without coaching, because I've been doing it straight since 2018. And sometimes you just kind of get caught up, and if you have your nose too close to the grindstone, then you will miss out on other things. So I wanted my nose to kind of take a break from the grindstone and figure things out. Nothing is definite unless it really is definite, like death, or you know. But you know, even if you have setbacks, you can still try to make things work. There are a lot of people who made things work. Stephen Hawking I mentioned already, but even within the parkour disciplines, there are people who make it work without a limb or a certain disability. There's a community of these disabled parkour athletes. One of the more famous one was the athlete without one leg who did insane jumps and flips and just figured out how to roll with it. And the same goes for the drawing. I sort of at one point felt like I'm a little too cooped up and kind of focused too much on this delicate area, and I started to feel dizzy. And even now, like sometimes focusing a lot on things, especially that now I have to wear reading glasses, kind of makes me forget about the world around me, and then when I zoom back out, I feel dizzy and disoriented. Another aspect of anxiety I should work out. But yeah, our minds did change since the internet became predominant as a form of communication and acquiring information. I find myself reading books much less because my eyes are already tired from all this scrolling and watching YouTube and that stuff. And then whenever I read a book, I catch myself trying to find a comment section or highlight a word and look it up in the dictionary. And also it sort of feels like the linear reading seems very tedious now. Like I kind of feel like, where's my link? I need this more dispersed sort of attention when I look at a page, like we do with the internet. Really, our brains are pretty easy to rewire, which is something to beware. It's sort of a warning that you might think that you have a solid grip on reality and your views and your values, but our brains can be rewired in a flash, and brains can be washed. There's some really powerful detergents out there that can wash our brains, and then you will believe in things that you would never think you would believe, and they will feel very real to you suddenly. So even the simple thing like absorbing information, the way we absorb information changed in just maybe 3 decades, and it's still in a process of changing. Everything is in a constant flux. We don't know how the new trends in technology and social media will rewire our brains even more, and also how it will affect the youngest, because we are still the generation that can compare the time of growing up without the internet, just with TV. Even though the TV was quite a dominant force in our life, I watched way too much TV as a kid. But the kids that are now growing up with nothing but tablets and laptops, social media, TikTok, and they will have this kind of way of grasping reality which is like a shortcut, like a little short video on TikTok. And even now it's almost mind-boggling how simplistic and straightforward the TikTok videos are, and how over-explaining they are. Like, there's a person narrating the video while a text appears of the same words said by the narrator, and the word currently enunciated is highlighted in the video. So you have no doubt which word is being said right now. And it's too much. It's very overwhelming. And then there's this another trend that raises my blood pressure, which is an influencer in a corner of the window nodding and pointing upwards towards the influencer that is nodding and pointing at another influencer that says something about politics or some kind of basic truth that they agree with. Like, there's like a feedback loop of like pointing and nodding. Like, the influencer is so popular that they don't even bother to make their own video where they express themselves. They just paste their face on top of another influencer's monologue, and they do pointing, like point and nod, and it just drives me nuts. How is this still a thing? Maybe someone will edit this video and add their face in the corner and will like point and nod with this like wise expression on their face. See, this is what I mean. Listen to that wisdom. Point and nod. And then the other thing, which is, I really avoid that whenever I stumble upon it, when you come across a short video, one of those vertical ones, you scroll through them on YouTube or something, you realize that the narrator in the video is talking about the creator of the video, whoever is doing the thing in the video, whatever art or something amazing. They talk about it in third person. So for example, if my video here was a subject to this manipulation, someone would take a clip from it and say, this guy made the most incredible drawing out of just a few squiggly lines. Look how it turned out. And that's parasitism. It's like I call them hyenas of Instagram, because they're looking for videos of things that don't have as much following, because for some reason, the algorithm, I explained that earlier, the algorithm is hiding away things that are a little bit more obscure, that are not obviously immediately clickable. But there are these hyenas on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube that are seeking out these kind of interesting but slightly obscure people that make these really impressive things, and they make them into their own videos, and they get their clicks. Like, they may never even create their own content. They might just rely on someone else's content. Look how this guy built his house with his bare hands. Yeah, that's this guy. What did you do? Oh, I just stole someone else's video and edited it so that I don't get busted for infringement, because I think there's some kind of loophole where you can just under fair use, you can sort of show someone else's video with your own narration, your own commentary. That's why there's so many videos using footage from popular TV shows and movies. Under fair use, you can practically get a lot of following by using very famous clips saying, oh, this video, this TV show was horrible and I didn't like it, and yet, because many people do like it, you create controversy, you create a lot of rage clicking and rage comment from people that loved the show, and you can use the footage from the show that people enjoy and get more attention to it. That's another cool way to get more clicks. And yeah, rage bait. That's another thing that has been kind of almost pernicious on the internet. It's almost like turned into a political mess, a geopolitical mess, because at least I think everybody's Facebook feed is full of this artificially generated memes that are deliberately meant to rile up the other side. So, you know, if you are conservative, then you will be angry if someone posts this or that. If you're liberal, you will get very angry if someone posts stuff about, you know, how liberals are communists and they eat puppies. And, you know, it's just going to be this very exaggerated provocation, and that's only meant for one thing, which is to make Americans fight amongst each other, and basically it helps in destabilizing the country. It's very easy to create animosity based on gossip or just sort of just portraying the other side, you know, like kind of like creating an intrigue. There's an episode in Buffy, the Vampire Slayer, where Spike, I think it's called the Yoko Factor, and there's this Frankenstein hybrid monster who needs to separate the Slayer from her friends, and Spike was on a mission to do that by just simply using what's called the Yoko Factor. So by exaggerating certain features of the friends and by feeding into what the friends could have been talking about each other negatively, he created this scenario where he made them believe that they each talked behind their back about their insecurities, and that was enough for them to fight. And that's exactly what, you know, what the Russian bots are doing. Or, you know, you look up the origin of these posts, you look at the accounts that they're posted from, they're mostly foreign. Why would a foreign bot want to engage with American politics? Only to make people angry at each other and weaken the country. So yeah, mission accomplished, well done. They did it. Hopefully we will wake up from it, like the characters in the Buffy show did. They actually did figure out that it was all, even though there was still like a little bit of a bad blood in between them, because those things that were implied still hurt. They got to the source of the problem and they got over it and defeated the scary monster, which is something we should do. But unfortunately, it's not as easy in real life, where the enemy is sort of nebulous. And sometimes we become our own enemy. Right. This is kind of has a little Georgia O'Keeffe vibe here. Looks like a kind of a flowery composition with petals. And, but yeah, maybe I'll kind of let it breathe a little bit on one side. Oh, and then there's a lot of that same kind of infighting, even in things that are supposed to be joyful, like hobbies. Like hobbies, I follow some aquarium hobby YouTube channels, and I see a lot of this, like, kind of going behind each other's back and just criticizing each other for clicks. Like, oh, this guy created this tank totally improperly and his fish will die. But just, if you have a concern, just contact the person first. Like, why would you make a public video about it? There's a lot of this, like, because there's always going to be different way of approach, different approaches to different things, like in every hobby. And in aquarium, it's like, some people like to really create setups that are very realistic, the way nature intended them, like, and they're also very accurate. Like, I really like biotopes, which is creating an exact, almost a replica, not really a replica, but like using the the plants, the fish, the even substrate and rocks from the area of the world that you are inspired by. So like, you have a Amazon biotope, you have a Asian biotope, you can create biotope from a particular part of the world, even very narrow, some kind of river in Cambodia or something. You just kind of snorkel there, and then you get inspiration, and you try to find the materials that are original from that region. That's really cool, because it sort of enables you to learn a lot about these environments, which is why I prefer this method. Like, I create a separate tank for hatchet fish, which is like surface dwelling Amazonian fish, and it will require me to create a little bit more surface focused aquarium with like cool driftwood sticking out, and surface plants and whatnot. So like, a lot of people prefer a kind of fairy tale like aquarium, or unspecified type of aquarium, or community mix of fish from different parts of the world. Whatever, like, if they make it work, if the animals are healthy, then it's great. It's sort of like with the same goes for other hobbies like model trains, which is someone just wants to toy with cool electronics and make nice sound effects and steam, and like create a fantasy world. And then other people are very accurate, like me, with those aquariums, which pushes them to make setups like, I want to create this German train station from 1953 from this particular town, and I have archival pictures, some old photos, and I'm going to totally copy the look of that old town. And it's just very nostalgic, and then people will be like, oh, those who don't like this kind of thing, like, oh, you're boring, like, I don't know, someone might make a video about this drawing and say, oh, this guy is just full of it. He thinks he can draw, but look how he can't even hold a pencil, and he's using he renders the shadows wrong, because that's not how they teach it at school. And I'm like, whatever, dude, just, do that. Just focus on what you're doing. And if you have concerns about what I'm doing, I'm open to suggestion, but like, why would you try to berate me publicly on your channel and like make a whole video about it? Don't get it. And with that, I think we filled up the entire picture. It's kind of a cool paper because it really grabs the pencil. The graphite really stays on it, and it's a lot more. I think this pencil is it's a soft version, so there's a lot of dark in it. There's a lot of contrast, and it's a very easy. The way the pencil leaves the mark is very immediate, very easy. So I have to be very careful not to overdo it. But other than that, I think I got another abstract. So if you were looking for something more, specific, like a portrait of Michael Jackson, or your favorite other musician, then I'm sorry to disappoint. If you enjoy this kind of automatic drawing and rambling, stick around and we'll see where it gets us. My prediction is that my drawing skills will improve in some way, or maybe I will get more focused. I will maybe add some elements, like today I added the squiggly lines to start with. It kind of helped me with creating these planes, and I think with time also I will become more precise with how I use my words, maybe more concise, more eloquent. I don't know, I kind of like this as a practice because I don't really practice talking as much, and it shows in social settings. It's another anxiety exposure therapy challenge to feel comfortable in. I mean, we never really feel comfortable in social settings. Even the extroverts, there's always the unknown, and always like this the need to improvise. It always gets you, and it's life is not supposed to be comfortable. If I was comfortable in social settings, I would never go out to participate in them. I do, but I rarely enjoy them, but you do get better, and this does help with kind of focusing my mind, kind of double focus, drawing, leading my pencil on the surface of paper, while also meandering, thinking out loud. And even though it might be pretty boring, at the very least, I hope that it could help you fall asleep. There's a lot of videos that are used for falling asleep, and some of them are actually videos from Eastern teachers of mindfulness, like Thich Nhat Hanh, Vietnamese mindfulness teacher, whose voice is very soothing. So like it works like a charm when you want to fall asleep. But the irony of it is that his words are meant for you to be awakened. So like it's kind of sad. I hope he wouldn't mind to learn that people use his lectures as a sleeping aid. I will not mind if someone falls asleep to these videos. Actually, would be even better if they did, because then they wouldn't have to hear the content of my words, which sometimes are kind of all over the place. But just having human voice, maybe gentle sound of the pencil against the paper can help. Alright, I think I'm starting to feel a little compulsive here. I'm trying to solve problems that are not there, so I should probably end it there. Alright, and with that, I hope to see you. I mean, I will not see you, but I hope to get back to you in the next one.